Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Philip Bywater. We warmly welcome the family of Private Alfred James Woodman, whose story will be told shortly. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting in 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Alfred James Woodman. Alfred Woodman was born in the Melbourne suburb of Richmond on the 11th of January 1916, the son of Hubert and Myra Woodman. Affectionately known as Alfie, who grew up in West Brunswick, where he attended the local school. He went on to be employed doing chemical work for the battery-making company Impex. Woodman was also a member of the Citizens Military Forces, serving for 4 years with the 15th Field Ambulance. Because of this experience, after he enlisted on the 30th of June 1940, he was posted as 2nd and 9th Field Ambulance of the Australian Army Medical Corps. After some training in Bonegilla in early February 1941, the unit left Sydney bound for Singapore. The unit then moved to Port Dickson on the west coast of Malaya, where they were trained in transporting the sick and the wounded. During this time, Private Woodman fell afoul of military discipline on a few occasions. In May, he was charged with leaving his post without being properly relieved, and in August, he was charged with disobeying the command of a superior, failing to go to parade when directed. Throughout November and the start of December, it seemed that war with Japan was increasingly likely. By the start of 1942, the Japanese had advanced through Thailand and most of Malaya. When the Japanese began their assaults on Singapore on the 8th of February 1942, Woodman's unit was overwhelmed with the task of evacuating the many wounded to a dressing station known as Hill 80. On the afternoon of the 9th of February 1942, the medical officer in charge of the dressing station ordered all of his personnel to evacuate to Hill 80. But Woodman, Harold Ball, William Lewis, and medical officer Captain John Park, who were all travelling in the same vehicle, never reached Hill 80. Dispatch riders were sent out to locate the men, but they could not be found. The men were reported missing with the hope that they were being held as prisoners of war. It wasn't until the 9th of May 1942, 3 months later, that a working party of Australian prisoners of war sent out to cut feed for Japanese horses found the bodies of 4 men who had been tortured by the Japanese before being executed. 2 of the bodies were identified as being John Park and Harold Ball, but Woodman's remains were never positively identified. The Woodman family's suffering was compounded the following year when Alfred's younger brother, Percival Woodman, who was serving as a gunner in the 10th Field Regiment, died of wounds received in a road accident on the 23rd of February. Today, Alfred Woodman is commemorated at the Singapore War Memorial in Kranji War Cemetery, which bears the names of over 24,000 casualties among Commonwealth soldiers who fought in Southeast Asia and who have no known grave. Woodman's name also appears on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Alfred James Woodman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode, the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.